It being 6:10, I'll call to order the meeting of the Carver Redevelopment Authority of November 2nd. It's 6:10. There are 4 members, so we do have a quorum. We're waiting for Joanna, but we can go ahead and start at this point. I'm going to, as is the chairman's prerogative, I'm going to move a few things around. We'll take the third item under the update on ongoing projects for the update on the consultant search. We do have a guest from the, let me see if I got it right, Plymouth Regional Economic Development Foundation. Okay. Mr. Stephen Cole, who is well known here in town. He was our former planner, and he is going to make a presentation, a short introduction presentation for our consultant on this project. I will hand the floor to Mr. Cole.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Shall I do it from here, or shall I do it from the table? What is best for the audio?
Do you have a slideshow or something?
Not a slideshow, but I do have some things just to hand out, and
Okay.
just a quick introduction.
Wherever you're comfortable,
All right,
just
I'm just
doing
going to
it.
set up here, if that's okay, just for the moment.
That's
Position myself so that the camera can see a portion of my face, the better side. I'll hand out some of my cards. Sir. Thanks, sir.
fine.
Nice to see you again, Susan.
You as well.
Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Joanna said she had a family issue and she will be unable to attend.
I saw her at Halloween, but she did not know it was me. I was in costume. I take my nieces and nephews out around Cranberry Circle every year with their parents, and it turns into a pretty nice community event. I'm going to present to you a brief introduction to the foundation. I have here just a copy of our annual report that I presented to my board. Oh, sorry, somebody is also accompanying that. Okay, thanks. To my board at our last annual meeting on July 13th, 2021. And this is a bit of a depiction of some of the activities that we do as a comprehensive economic development foundation. You're welcome, thank you. And I will leave for you also, did I not give you one? How rude of me.
I was just letting Joanna know to take
For you.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
yes. And I'm going to leave this behind. These are the attachments in the addenda to the annual report outline that you have. Rather than print off one for everyone, I thought that maybe one behind would be more than sufficient.
Okay.
All right. So just for starters, the Plymouth Economic Development Foundation, we call ourselves for short Plymouth Foundation because it is a mouthful. It also is a little more succinct to what we kind of do. We're organized as a foundation for tax purposes, which really just kind of requires that we have to get about 5% of our total assets over 3 years into the community. And there's lots of ways that we do that. You can see in the annual report some of the traditional and non-traditional things that we've done, specifically focusing on Plymouth for the last couple of years that I've been away. But some of the cornerstones for economic development is, of course, land use, small business development, workforce development, entrepreneurship and innovation, and then what I typically call MECA, marketing events and cultural assets or affairs, really depending on what you have to play with. But those are the 5 pillars for what I think economic development is. And that's kind of informed over a 20-year career. I started out my career working on urban redevelopment in the city of Springfield, New England's 4th largest city, the 3rd largest in Massachusetts. Frankly, every square inch of that city is a brownfield. And there were 36 urban redevelopment plans in the city of Springfield, dating back all the way to the 70s, some even a little later than that. Subsequently, I spent 7 years in Plymouth during the, Springfield during the control board years. So it was a bit of a comprehensive exercise in what you can get done, but also how tentative local level democracy can be from a state level. Really what that means is we're political subdivisions of the state, and so the state has to be a partner in anything that we do. I spent subsequently 5 years in the city of Hartford, much smaller city by landmass, but equitable in population to Springfield. Every square inch of that city is a brownfield. And so we had 13, I think, urban renewal plans in the city of Hartford. When I first arrived in Hartford, I was senior project manager for corporate relations, and then I ascended to director of development. So I oversaw the economic development function. Subsequent to that, I came back to Massachusetts because When mayors lose their job, we lose ours, and that was fine to be transient in my 20s, my 30s. I had more anchors, and frankly, a lot of the things that brought me to Connecticut at that time were no longer relevant to me. Namely, my master's degree. I received my master's degree from Trinity College, writing my thesis on regional economic development, focusing on the greater Hartford region. So those are some of my personal skills that I bring to a role like this. For the last 2 years, I've been working in the city, well, not yet, but soon to be perhaps, the town of Plymouth. And some of our focus areas there have been largely on land use and workforce development, namely in the post-pandemic. So what we've done is we've been successful taking land that the town owns and basically getting it back on the tax rolls. So one example is an intersection at Herring Pond and Hedges Pond. Just a little further down Hedges Pond, in fact, is a 60-acre site next to the capped landfill that you may be familiar with in Plymouth. The town had that off the tax rolls for the last 50 years. Worked with the town planner to identify the rough parameters for what we think might be developable. I applied for and received an $80,000 grant from Mass Development for site readiness. We searched the title, we did environmental phase 1, and actually we just completed the ALTA too. And we're going to be taking that over from the town, and we will be disposing of that fairly quickly. In fact, I'll have an offer in my inbox tomorrow, and that land is going from land of low value, essentially, to the foundation that I now run is going to sell that for $3.9 million. The development potential for that, frankly, is, well, I don't want to spill too many beans, but there's a number of manufacturers that have been looking to be in our area for a time now. And something I think that you need to consider, too, about the strategic location of this particular place in Carver and even in South Plymouth. There's 250,000 people who live in Barnstable County. There's 518,000 people in our county, in Plymouth County, and 580,000 people in Bristol County. There's going to be 600,000 new people living in the southeast by 2030, and if you don't believe me, it's already been happening. We've seen it, right? So with all that said, the closest place where you have any real refrigerated warehousing is in Taunton. I mean, you have Cisco, of course, in Plimpton, but Nestle just sold all that, and they're looking for new operators to take over some of those sites, right? The whole warehouse and distribution game is completely seismically upset in our area. Warehousing in Greater Boston is at less than 2%. Metro North is built out, Metro West is built out. Berkshire is basically a different state, and we're not talking about any kind of competitive economic development from them. And really, even as they do talk about the east-west corridor at the legislative level, which will go down the length of 90, connecting the 3 Western Mass counties to Eastern Mass, it still doesn't solve the warehousing problem that we have in Eastern Mass. So where are we going to see the influx of warehousing? Where are we best suited for that? It's likely in our area, frankly. And having worked at the foundation for the last couple of years, there are a couple of developers that are ready to pull the trigger. They just haven't found the right site. I know from having been here on the ground in Carver that this site is a couple of years off. But if we do the right things now, you can market the site, you can brand the site, you can actually get it ready for the development for what we will see next. And I will tell you, I've had conversations with Savory back when I was a planner here, and some of the things that I kept my finger on the pulse of are things like AI and quantum. We need a place where quantum research and development can happen, and all you really need is a skilled work set and cheap power. There's 5,900 megawatts of wind coming online in the next couple of years, and it's going to affect this area especially, because this is where the state has said they're going to invest in it. We're not going to get the supply chain, we're not going to get the distribution, we're not going to get the jobs. That's not what we were looking for anyway at the state level. New York, New Jersey, even Pennsylvania, they negotiated that with some of those utility companies to build their wind. You're going to invest here so you can build your warehouse and your distribution lines here. Massachusetts actually required progressive, each successive bid for power, each megawatt that comes online has to be cheaper than the preceding. So that guarantees that ratepayers in Massachusetts, and the largest ratepayers are consumers of electricity at the great scale of manufacturing, right? They're going to get a better deal, frankly. Massachusetts is looking to cheapen the rate that ratepayers pay. And something else that we've talked a little bit about, and I know this town has also dealt with, having worked on it myself, is grid scale energy storage. That still has to happen, and it still needs a home. And when you think about economic development, if you build 500 homes, and even if it's on a developer's road, that road is not supposed to be public, but it's going to be public. We all know that. The town will incur the cost of paving that road and plowing that road and removing the trees and whatever else needs to happen. What I'm driving at is too, and I can cite Plymouth stats, I confess I'm a little away from the Carver stats. I will acclimate quickly, however, if we agree to work together. But I think that when you consider that the average house pays about $5,000 in taxes, but the average kid costs $17,000 to educate,
Yeah.
something's upside down. And no matter what community I've ever lived in or worked in Massachusetts or Connecticut, 70 cents of every dollar of the budget, roughly, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, it goes to the schools. And most of the developments that we're seeing are 55+ acre strip. So what we're ultimately telling people is that we're not going to diversify our economy, we're not going to create job opportunities for kids who are graduating high school, and we're not even going to let them legally live here for the next 40 years because they're too damn young. There's no chance for them to come back. And I tell you, I grew up in the general vicinity. I refer to this area colloquially as continental Cape Cod. It makes my peninsular Cape Cod friends a little upset, but I will tell you that we are proximate to Boston and Plymouth and New Bedford and Fall River. New Bedford, by the way, is the wealthiest port in the country, 20 years running. Let us not discount that. In fact, where I live in the Buzzards Bay, side footnote, it takes me about as long to go to the New Bedford market basket as it does to what I call the Carver market basket.
Yeah.
So when I make a choice sometimes, I make a choice based on what am I going to do before or after I go shopping? And those are the types of things I think that Carver has as an asset potentially for the urban renewal area. I don't know what's going to be there. None of us do. But if you prepare it for the right types of development and you co-leverage what you have with the new types of industries that are emergent, I'll pause again to say quantum is something that doesn't quite exist yet, and it doesn't have a home. But it needs a home soon. The only piece of legislation that I can actually put my finger on that was uniquely bipartisan in the last 4 years was the Quantum Research and Development Leadership Act. That it was 98 to 0 to 2 in the Senate. I know. For those who can't see at home, eyebrows were raised on the dais. Because it is unbelievable. But the fact of the matter is, it sets the goal that over the next now 8 years, because this is 2 years ago that they passed this, that the United States will be the dominant leader in quantum research and development. That's not any weird sci-fi stuff. That's just saying supercomputers. It doesn't have a home yet. And if in Massachusetts we can create cheap power source, or at least an inexpensive power source, a reliable power source, geez, how many of us have lost power for the last 4 days? That can't happen if we're going to try and attract these types of industries. But we can attract these types of industries. And I'll tell you why. The pivot point for those people who are leaving the Navy, especially those people in the submarine service, it's quantum. They've got all the technical skills for nuclear technicians. You can't build on industry unless you have some of the core values and the bases in place. You can't build on nuclear until you have industry. You can't get to quantum until you have some kind of a basis for nuclear technician. We have a closed power plant in our backyard. There's almost 500 people in our general vicinity. Carver is the #2 town, by the way, where those people lived. They're still here for the most part. We could tap into that talent. We could encourage encore entrepreneurs. Those are those people who are semi-retired. Maybe they're not fully retired yet. Maybe they're back to being empty nesters and have some liquidity and they can be investors in a startup. But that's literally what we're talking about here, is startups in what will be a major industry that will pay massive amounts of taxes over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And that's, I think, the lens we have to take, especially when it comes to an urban renewal plan. So it's true, it's not going to be ready in the next couple of years, but if we have a 10, 15-year perspective, we're going to lay the groundwork for the types of industries that are looking for a home, that will be looking for a home, and are looking to grow. So with that said, some of the things that I've been able to do in Plymouth actually attracted some of those types of industries from an investment perspective. I can't tell you who yet because we're close to inking the deal, but there is a 3D home manufacturer who at their last board of directors, shareholders meeting, announced that they're going to be inking the deal in Plymouth. There's a megaplex factory that they made out in Palo Alto. I can tell you at least that much. And they look to manufacture 2,000 3D printed homes a year when they're fully operational. And they're not just for this area, they're all over the Northeast. They'll be sending this all over the Northeast. They have a growth chart and they have a very, very focused way of distributing their homes within a certain radius of each other. So they can also attract talent. So anyway, I don't know what necessarily the town is going to be looking for, but there are lots of opportunities that are in our area. This company that I just mentioned, by the way, they spent the last 6 years ruminating on places to be out in Barnstable County, and they've ultimately given up. It's very difficult to develop, you can imagine, in Marsville, right? For different reasons than we have here. So at any rate, I think that if we lay the groundwork, if we talk about the land in the right way, if we're open-minded about the types of industries that we want to see that perhaps don't even really exist yet, we can have that conversation as startup space. I think Carver can be fairly successful. The other matter I want to bring up is I spent some time looking at the consultant services request for proposals, and I should have led with this. I see this as an opportunity for myself and the foundation to basically tell you that we are interested. This is our letter of intent. I'm not here tonight to make a proposal. I think that based on the services you're looking for and what the cost threshold may be, this might necessitate at least 3 solicitations perhaps. I'll defer to you folks for how you run the process, but I see tonight as really just a matter of submitting a letter of intent of sorts, so you know who we are, that we have the skill set to manage an urban redevelopment plan. And also, I want to introduce you for the next couple of moments, just talking about my board of directors. Some of you may know these folks, but I think it's important to note that these 13 individuals are very much a part of the foundation's operations. I am the executive director. I mean, look, Jesus did so much more with just a little bit less. He had 12, I got 13, and all we're trying to do is develop land. But these folks are some of the most, in my mind, exhibited some of the most influence over the economy in the greater Plymouth area. Bill Hallisey is the owner and operator for Shiretown Glass. Jay Kimball, some of you may know as the owner of Wood Seafood at the tavern in Plymouth. Kevin O'Reilly is our assistant treasurer. He's also the operator of Triple M. Don't let that deceive you. He's actually very capable in other ways, and I'll tell you, he was instrumental in the Plymouth proposal to capture the Hollywood East. That was an excellent proposal. It didn't happen ultimately anywhere because the industry changed the way they do movies, but we all know that they're still shooting movies up here all the time, right? So the Plymouth proposal for Hollywood East, Kevin spearheaded that. He's also the former executive director of the Chamber of Commerce. Charlie Wall is a retired president of Massasoit. He's also former president of Greenfield Community College, and I believe he's also a current board of trustee member for Bridgewater State University. So we were able to pull in the academic firepower also. I'll pause here to say too that we received a $200,000 grant from the EDA, the Economic Development Administration, so that we can study entrepreneurship in Plymouth County, Barnstable County, and Bristol County. One of the things I promised when I left Carver was I'll be back. And I'll come back in a different type of a way so that we can actually leverage what Carver's assets are with the regional assets. And I'm glad to say that although it's outside of the urban renewal plan, I've already been conceptualizing a project that's going to pull Carver into the conversation about entrepreneurship. The former school administration building on South Meadow Road, right across from the airport, next to a golf course. It's got a lot of amenities that a corporate entity might be looking for. And we spent some of that money from the $200,000. We're studying that facility as a possible Plymouth Carver entrepreneurship center with hackerspace, makerspace, tinkerspace, 3D printing, professional co-working space, and in all likelihood, we'll have what's called a ghost kitchen. Something akin to the Commonwealth Kitchen that exists at the seaport. In my time in Plymouth, certainly in my time in Carver, there's a lot of folks who use their land and their kitchens to supplement their income in really creative ways. Jellies, jams, honeys, beer, I mean, even firewood, but that's not necessarily what we're talking about. But the fact of the matter is we have a lot of creativity in our area. And so as we're pursuing this idea of creating an entrepreneurship center, it will be regional in scope, and it will, I believe, involve Carver. There's a lot of talent here. And some folks at home may not know this, but Carver's median household income is about $30,000 higher than Plymouth's. Small town, but it's got some firepower behind it. So with that said, we intend to use our assets, our partnerships, and our resources to leverage with what you can obtain. Now, Plymouth, I will say I'm focusing largely on waterfront development, blue and green economy. That's an industry that I know, or sectors in industry that I know can be developed. We're not going to get that in Carver. It'd be silly to even try. But there are things that can happen in Carver that may not necessarily be attractive to places in Plymouth, because Plymouth is large. It takes a long time to go from one place to another. Some of the places for development aren't even close to a highway. So with that said, and also Plymouth doesn't have, there isn't townwide water in Plymouth. I mean, not a lot of towns in our area have townwide water, so that there is a water in this vicinity might yet be attractive for myriad other reasons. So as I was going through my list here, I paused to mention that I also have UMass at the table as well. They're the ones conducting our $200,000 study. So UMass Donahue Institute is the state's think tank. They're their policy and think tank. Melissa Rigi is the town manager in Plymouth. Lee Hartman is the town planner in Plymouth. Jack Neal is a former banker and capital investor. He is retired. Matt Moratori is the state rep from Plymouth District 1. Amy Naples is the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce. Ed Santos runs a number of charities and foundations in Plymouth. He's also a retired banker. He's also responsible for having developed the 450-acre industrial park in Plymouth. He is, and when I say he is responsible for it, I quite literally mean in the 60s he aggregated the site. He and a number of his colleagues put in $1,000 each, and that was the start of the Plymouth Industrial Corporation. And that's what became their industrial park. Dee Spencer is a academic, she's a professor at Northeastern in real estate, and Dick Quintal is the chairman of the Plymouth Select Board. So that rounds out the 13 board members for the Plymouth Regional Economic Development Foundation. I've said a lot. I'll apologize. I'll pause if there's any questions, and if there's anything particular you'd like to ask me. And I'm going to grab my water.
Okay, yeah. With the Route 44 project, you understand that there's already a preferred developer.
Yes.
Okay. Hillwood, I don't know if you've looked into them, or, so do you have any thoughts about the area that's already in progress to being developed? And that's for a distribution center. That's pretty much what I got.
Well, it sounds like...
Other than, I mean, you threw out all these other possibilities, and I really like the sound of some of them. I don't know if it's feasible, and certainly we don't own the land. We are, the town of Carver is not necessarily in control of the land, only through the permitting processes. And the owner, Route 44 Development, has some kind of an agreement with Hillwood, which is a company in Texas, who do this kind of thing. And they've been doing their due diligence for about a year now, I would say. God, it's been, I don't even know how long it's been now. I get caught trying to remember the COVID year, where we started and where we ended up.
The gap year?
Yeah. But I know they're doing their due diligence. And that would be something that we would need guidance with. There's a lot of strings being left dangling right now. And we're looking for someone with a broad knowledge, and certainly your urban renewal experience would well come into play here, for someone to help us get everything, all our ducks in order. Savory?
Yeah, we're, Hillwood's pretty far along in the process of what they're planning to build here. You know, our main intention now is to bring some zoning changes that they have asked for to town meeting in April, and tout the benefits of what this distribution center will mean to Carver, for multiple reasons. Mostly the revenue that this could bring to the town, but also the ancillary jobs that it could bring to help fill up some of the half-empty strip malls in town with businesses that these employees would want to utilize, because you know people shop and people bank and people do dry cleaning where they work, not really where they live, because they're at work more days than they are at home. Part of what the zoning change that the developer is looking for right now, our current zoning in the Green Business District is 40-foot maximum height, and the developer is looking for a zoning change in the Green Industrial Park only to 65 feet. primarily because the current state-of-the-art technology for racking systems in a distribution center needs a full 40-foot interior height. So they're asking for 65 to make sure that there's enough room above the 40 feet for any kind of trusses to hold the roof, and then the roof itself, and any kind of equipment that goes onto the roof, such as air filtration, air conditioning. And also being in the green business district, they need to reach certain green building codes, such as solar. So they would need to put solar on the roof as well, and that's going to add another 6 to 8 feet to the height of the roof. So they're looking for that. And I think that going along with what you said regarding technology and the people around here, the 40-foot interior height that they're looking for to utilize the state-of-the-art racking equipment is all robotic. So it would probably create fewer jobs of the type of manual hands-on carrying things, but would create more higher-paying technological jobs to design, maintain, and run the robotic systems in this facility. So that's why they're looking for that relief. There are some other things that they're looking for zoning changes, which are really more economic and just to make it a little bit easier. For instance, right now our current height for parking lot lamps is 20 feet. They're looking for 40 feet because that will eliminate, or that will reduce the number of fixtures they need by a factor of 4. So, right now our zoning says that a roadway has to be 12 feet in each lane. And they were looking for language to change to a minimum of 12 feet because they're going to want it a little bit wider for trucks. So, it's small things like that are the other zoning changes. The primary thing that they're looking for is the change in building height. What we're looking for as the RDA is help in espousing the benefits that this is going to bring by having a state-of-the-art facility in here, as opposed to retaining the current zoning at 40 feet, which will bring in a lesser state-of-the-art building, and therefore a lesser quality tenant, most likely.
As of right, they can build a 40-foot building of 1.2 million square feet.
Right.
And is it collectively the board's opinion that 65 feet is necessary, or have you not had that discussion yet?
I think just in general discussions, I think we are in favor of the zoning change. I can't speak for everybody, but I think we agree that the reasoning for going to 65 feet is certainly valid, and will bring not only a higher level client, but a longer term lease to the tenant, so that there's less worry that in 5 years from now we have an empty shell that no one wants, as opposed to some 30-year lease of a much larger not international but national brand that would be here for the long term.
Sure.
And we're not sure right now whether the developer Hillwood will maintain ownership of the building and lease it, or whether they will build to suit and then sell.
How many acres is ready right now for development?
They can
Are they assuming the whole site is now? Oh, okay. All right.
they can put a shovel in the ground.
You guys did a lot in the last 2 years.
They
Well,
did less than their original plan, but enough to make it viable. There's enough clean fill on the site now for them to move it where they need to do what their plan is. Their current plan is one building of, it's 1.8 million square feet.
is it 1.8?
Yeah, it's one building of 1.2 million square feet.
Oh, right, that's right.
And a second warehouse of 600,000 square feet.
I gave you with your zoning book over there was attached the latest conceptual plan, and it was only, it's only kind of a working thing of 2 buildings.
Great. I will refamiliarize myself at the status of the project. Sounds mostly administrative, frankly. I mean, that's
Well,
a little more predictable and prescribed. The zoning change obviously will have some public outreach hearings. We'll have to get the planning board to endorse it, in my opinion, because if it doesn't endorse it, it doesn't come back for 2 years, if I'm recalling correctly. If it fails a town meeting.
right, the planning board, I believe, is going to be the sponsor of
They'll be the
The sponsor
sponsor.
of the, okay, great.
of the article.
And I understand the planner is imminently
They're,
hiring.
I have 5 resumes. I'll be on the interview committee along with Bruce Mackey, who's the chair of the planning board. We have 5 resumes in hand now. The closing date is Friday, the 5th. And I'll get together with Bruce, and I hope to do interviews and see what the select board is talking about hiring. But there's 1 or 2 good candidates.
Okay, good.
Our opinion is that the main areas of concern in the town, when this comes to town meeting, are going to be the safety factor, primarily with the fire department and their ability to fight a fire in a facility that large. And that would include not only the building itself, but the parking areas where trucks will be. And the second item that residents of the town are going to be concerned with is traffic. So those are probably going to be the noisiest topics when this starts getting the groundswell of comment throughout the town.
I mean, at the time that you left, I think there was probably a bit of discussion on eminent domain and the use of that. All of those parcels have been purchased outright by the current owner. So there was nothing ever taken by eminent domain. It was just an avenue that if they needed it, they would have used it, but there wasn't a lot of support to do it that way. And they ended up buying out, I think, 12, 13 parcels.
Yeah.
I think fair to say, though, that people still have that. If anybody remembers anything, it's that.
It's that, so
That's
that's one thing we really need to get
Yeah.
out there.
There's already
is
like,
that it's already taken care of. It's been taken care of for years.
this prescribed notion
Yeah.
that people got stuck in their heads. that we're
Yeah,
starting from
well,
behind the
it
eight
might
ball.
be their last point of reference.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
But everybody went away, as far as we know, pretty happy. And some of those zoning changes are changing certain parcels into the green business park because they had been accepted earlier, and they picked up 1 or 2 in the back, I think, so.
So this, this goes towards the warehousing and distribution center that this area is lacking.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
much,
No, makes a lot of sense.
which is why we're pushing for this.
And it's over 200 acres?
Yeah.
Yeah,
250.
around 250. But a brownfield, which you apparently are well aware of.
Just a thing or two. And I think something that we can bring to, I think, is the mindfulness of its location and how it might affect the adjacent communities. We take a regional approach to anything that we do at the foundation. And I also pride ourselves in taking into consideration the values and the character of communities like Carver and like Plymouth. We have core values that make us special and make us worth investing in. So to not lose that element of it too, I think is something we might be able to bring. This is largely administrative. I think this is very predictable. Frankly, sometimes creating the vision or finding the vision is the hard part. It sounds like there's already something there, and it's just communicating what that is and what its effects are to the community. Right now, going through a rebranding at the foundation as well. We recognize how important that is. How you talk about yourself matters, and how other people talk about you matters too. Innately democratic in my approach. I think that through a series of community meetings, get a real good sense of where the pulse is. Meet with the developer, get a sense of what exactly they need. We'll work on the language, work with the new planner to make sure we get on the planning board agenda. We have what we need before we go into town meeting in April. But we'd have to work backwards in the timeline, because if you're talking about April, I don't remember them off the top of my head.
They're
I know there's
supposed to
some
set the
prescriptions.
timeline tonight.
Yeah, the select board meeting is going on simultaneously. They're talking about setting the date for
Okay.
Because
articles being submitted.
originally they wanted to try and bring the change to last April, was it just last April?
Yeah,
Town meeting, but it was proposed, it was too quick. It was, so we thought we might try fall town meeting, but that didn't materialize. So now we're kind of gearing towards the annual town meeting in April. And we asked for a timeline to be set possibly tonight, because we want the owner and the developer to be very aware of where we need to be on certain dates. 30 days before, and get to public hearing, and that's where Mr. Kelly will come in with some of his work on the website and getting the questions out and getting the correct information out. But it's also tying in a lot of, like, loose ends. We have a lot of things we have to keep track of, and, I think we're looking for assistance in just partly organizational, partly presentation, partly helping us get the word out. I don't know how many people watch our videos, but, and that's what we're looking for. And it'll also be communicating possibly with Hillwood too.
Now, I know they have an idea for how their site is going to operate or what the use is, but do they have an end user in mind? Or do
they have
an
not
operator?
told us
They have
yet.
not told us, and
Whether they have one, or they haven't told you who it is?
They certainly haven't told us who it
they
is.
haven't told us who it is. Some people believe they know and just aren't telling us. I honestly don't think that they know. I think they
I
have,
think they don't know.
I feel they don't know, but they probably
I
have
would think they got a short list.
a short list.
Yeah, because they work with these companies at
All
other
the time.
places, and they know, let's just make it up, they know what an Amazon wants to do generally.
And,
or a Walmart
they
wants
bring
to
out
do generally.
Wayfair and Home Depot and Walmart. All of those places are currently exploding with their home delivery services.
Everything
It's
becomes dependent upon the height,
the height.
because if they can't get the 65-foot height, then these big companies are gonna go somewhere else where they can get that.
I think
Because
it's
they-
important though, and this is one of the things that I like about what we're talking about here, what you were talking about before. It becomes dependent on that for this.
Mhm.
And I want to make sure too that we think about, it might not happen. Despite our best efforts, if it doesn't go to 65, then what? And what are the other options that the town needs to think about? And I think from what you were talking about before, if we work together, we could work on Plan A, but then there's the possibility with your work regionally about what Plan B might have to be. If this doesn't come through, and we gotta be talking about Millwood's out and somebody else might not be in.
Well, there,
It's also, we don't control the land.
That's just it,
So-
exactly. He
Right.
can sell this to anybody he wants.
There's the proposal I received on the 60 acres I talked about earlier in my introduction. They came to me with an idea for self-storage, and I will tell you right now, I told them, I don't care if you pay me double what I'm asking, I'm not gonna sell you this land for self-storage. It's predatory, for one. Two, we don't have enough colleges
You're
in this
talking about
area.
the little garages that you
Yeah.
rent?
Yeah, and the reason being, the reason why they're interested in investing in this area is because foreclosures and evictions are happening now. And people need a place to put their stuff, because we're not in an urban environment. It's very difficult to move it across town lines even.
Mhm.
If you don't have an option to put it someplace, you're gonna put it in a self-storage. And that's one of the reasons why that particular use has been proposed rather frequently in our area, because of the foreclosures and evictions. That said, one of the things that I do kind of pride myself on is the site selection and using data-driven analyses to attract developers and end users. I understand we don't own the land, you don't own the land, but I can tell you where the gold be buried in which hills. I'm not gonna dig it up for you, but I'll also pride myself on telling you to beware certain Ides of March. I'm not gonna jump in front of the knife either. You see what I'm saying? I will give the forewarnings where I think that based on the data and where the information is coming, we may want to steer clear from certain end uses. and where other ones might want to be focused on. And the other reason I think about startups, this has been proven time and again in any community I've ever lived and worked. And Mass Mutual is one good example. The Hartford Fire and Insurance Company is another good example. When a company starts in a community and it grows and it stays in that community, there's a reason why those companies are sometimes innovative and they dump a lot of money into their host community. The Hartford Fire and Insurance Company is someone who gives the city of Hartford tens of millions of dollars a year, partly because they're still locally owned. Mass Mutual, well, I mean, we used to call them Mother Mutual when I was in Springfield because they would give all kinds of money to us because that's where they're based. They are an international company based in Springfield, and their corporate headquarters is a very impressive campus. They pay an awful lot in taxes. By contrast, Aetna, it's some holding company in Japan that owns Aetna as far as I know. It might be Zurich these days. Half that campus is dark, and they haven't given the city much more than what their tax obligation is. So time and again, I've seen it, and actually I'll mention too a local nonprofit who has international ties. They're called the Manaman, used to be Institute, a brilliant organization. They're based in Plymouth, in Manaman, 40 acres, but they have a shellfish company that they started up in Maine because their last director lived in Maine. So where their corporate headquarters is matters. Where the corporate executive is matters because you get much more out of that buck. Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
Some of the things that you've been talking about are just exactly what I think is important that we get from a consultant are the abilities to deal with a developer or whomever and to get the real sense of what's going on there, talk their language and so forth, which some of us can't. We're not that adept, just quite frankly, so we don't get rolled. And I think that's extremely important.
Yeah, that stands out to me in the proposal that I saw, and that's something I take obviously seriously. What happens to the land at the end of the day does matter, and of course the relationship that the community is going to have with this developer is going to matter. I don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole, but the communities that sometimes see corporate unneighborly behavior are largely because they either weren't paying attention, there wasn't a compliance, there wasn't a full-time government, and the developer wasn't fully invested in the community. We've got absentee owners.
Absolutely.
Carver is very much a part-time government. It's a very intelligent community, but so many people are working during the day or raising their families, and the professional class that runs the town isn't necessarily even focusing on compliance. It's a part-time building inspector. It's right now no planner. The health agent is part-time. The conservation agent is part-time. I mean, these are going to be full-time problems though, and we know that. So with that said, I mean, to any extent that we can institute some kind of mitigation efforts, I mean, impact fees are illegal in Mass. But I've negotiated with developers and I said, you know, for every significant tree you cut down, I would like an inch for inch return. So a 10-inch tree, you're not going to go to Home Depot and buy that. And you're not going to plant it on that site either because there's a reason you're removing it. There are places, though, in a community like Carver where you can reforest. You can focus on reforesting, and it needs to happen partly because of the invasive species. And I know also from having been planner here, I've always been concerned about what happens when a couple of acres burns and no one notices for a day. 800 acres burned in Williamstown just at the beginning of the summer, and almost no one noticed. 800 acres. If something like what happened here in the late 50s and 60s happened again, with more people living here, with more opportunity for property damage without the mitigation, and look, 65-foot high buildings, that's not gonna matter, because these pines are 70 feet tall, and you're gonna fight that fire too. So
Right.
using new investment like this to solve old problems is something that I'm intent on, including reforestation, including replacing some of what you take, because the trees, if you remove that many trees from a space, you change the recharge for the aquifer, you change the stormwater plan and prevention, right? There's a lot of things to consider, and although you can't assess an impact fee in Mass, I have found that when you work with developers at the front end and you don't go back to the well, you can get a lot out of them, including sometimes, I've been successful negotiating upfront tax payments. It's actually sometimes better for them to sometimes carry that burden up front because of the way their investments and the way they raise money. It's not an actual burden they're gonna have to incur later on during operations. It doesn't happen for everyone, it doesn't happen all the time, But I have negotiated upfront tax payments so that we can do a kind of a sliding scale over the next couple of years. Incentives too. I just want to take your time to say, I don't give away incentives. I don't believe in giving away incentives. I think it's actually foolish if you over incentivize a project that's likely going to happen anyway. There are good examples in our area, and there's good examples where you can actually give away an incentive so you can get something extra out of them, and that's something that Plymouth has done in the past. So for example, taking over that 60 acres I mentioned to you, some of us may know about that Herring Pond intersection with the off-ramp and on-ramp there with the car wash. It is goddamn dreadful there, including they're building new housing there too.
Yeah.
I have taken on the direction from the town meeting that we're going to take some portion of our proceeds from selling that land that was otherwise no value. The town wasn't getting anything from it. Now they're gonna start getting tax revenue, but also we're going to take a portion of that money. We're gonna leverage it with our Mass Works funding as well as some additional state aid. And we're going to put it into as a matching fund. We're going to take some portion of the nonprofit. That's one of the benefits I find of maybe working with a nonprofit. We don't have that same corporate overhead.
Yeah.
And because we're a foundation, we have to get a portion of our assets into the community anyway. This is something that helps us. It's almost like Brewster's Millions. If we spend the $3 million now, it actually makes us much eligible to receive up to 80% funding from the EDA for something else relative to that development. So just saying, short dollars, I think that there's ways that we can mitigate some of the challenges, but also create some sustainability mechanisms that these corporate partners of yours feel like actual partners so that they're invested and they monitor their investment. Startups might be the best way to do that, but I understand there's already a vision in place. And my sense is, if I'm hearing the marching orders, work with the developer, help get through town meeting and the planning board what they need done for this particular proposal. And if I'm hearing Mr. Mark correctly, we're going to perhaps work on other econometrics that could support other types of ideas if this doesn't happen, because it seems feasible that this may not pass town meeting based on what I'm hearing.
There's always a chance. You know town meeting and you know Carver town meeting well. It depends on who's sitting in the hall that night. And if we do our job and it does work out, like, we haven't got our fiscal impact study back yet. That's to give us an idea of what revenue the proposal could bring. We don't even really know for a fact yet. And we still don't know, like, big expenses about fire and safety. If the chief has to be on board with this. He has to be able to put the fire out. Until he reaches a comfort level, we're still kind of like in this purgatory right now of we're trying to move forward, but we need so many answers from so many different people. And I think this morning at our working group, Savory had a good point that if we have our town meeting deadlines set, then at least the developer now has deadlines, and maybe that will spur on further negotiations. But we have, like, the North Carver Water District has to be involved, and not sure where they are right now. And this is where somebody like you, a consultant, could be monitoring all these little pieces that some of us are just losing track of it. Me in particular. Don't put that down.
I also just want to point out that Hillwood does employ a public relations firm that is local. Do you remember the name of the firm? It's a gentleman that...
Owen. Isn't it Owen?
Owen
Is his
Egan.
name?
Do you know Owen Egan from Marshfield? Anyway, he's local and he does this. But he's, what we're trying to do also for this outreach is to, and Paul Kelly is here this evening and has been at a number of our meetings. We've engaged Paul to work on the website through the Carver town website. It's going to be an RDA specific website, but linked through the town website for validity. The intent is to have the content of that website be a combination of information that we glean and all the things, the MIPA study, the urban renewal plan, all of the documentation that we as a town have, and historically have had for this piece of property all the way through current, along with information supplied by Hillwood describing who they are, and with examples of former projects that they have either completed or are continuing to work on, particularly more local. There's one out, I think, in Wilbraham or Hamden. There's one up in
North Andover.
North Andover, the big one, but different because they're repurposing a warehouse, but it's the same type of distribution center. And also, we mentioned this when we spoke to you on the phone, a robust FAQ section where we can put on questions and not only have the answers there, but also have a place where the residents of Carver can ask their own questions. And that will be monitored and questioned, and the answers will be given. We will seek out whoever has the correct answer and get that. I had done some rudimentary FAQs, Paul looked at them and rewrote some of them, and I think that we're going to talk about it at some point this evening. But I think that, assuming that you come on board with us here, that a meeting with a couple of members of the RDA plus Owen Egan from Hillwood's PR firm, and you would and Paul Kelly also, would kind of set the stage for where we all are coming from, and would give us the kickstart we need to get going, especially with town meeting coming up. So.
Sounds good. Well, the subject matter is exciting to me. I have a passion for the community. Look forward to working with you all again.
When you were here, did you go out to the site?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Anytime
so
I ruin
you
any
are
shoes,
familiar.
Oh,
Okay.
sure. Yeah, I still won't let those shoes in my house. It's no, I'm sure the site has changed a lot, so I'll make some time later on this week if I can, or early next, to get out there. And actually, if you could pass along the developer's information too, I'd like to let them know that I'll be going out there so they don't.
Yeah, it's still under the control of George McLaughlin,
Okay,
44
sure.
Development, so.
Okay. So I'll look forward to, I guess, when you're ready to solicit quotes.
And you said you need to take it to your trustees too.
Yeah, and actually I've spoken to my trustees also, and we haven't voted on anything yet, but informally they've all welcomed us. In fact, I challenged them, if we're gonna call ourselves regional, we should probably behave that way. And Carver and Plymouth have historically worked well together, much better than Plymouth's northern neighbor. So Kingston just doesn't want much to do with Plymouth, it seems sometimes. So path of least resistance, let us be regional, and I think that Carver has lots to build on, and I'm glad to apply any skills I have or any resources I have at the foundation to help this vision along.
Okay, great.
Let me ask you
Yes, sir.
another question.
Anything.
Regarding the other types of industry, the quantum and
Sure.
technology. You said that that's not ready yet.
Right.
Looking down the road, when do you think that would be something, if we are in fact a redevelopment authority, once this situation in North Carver is settled one way or another?
He thinks this is going to be a quick answer, huh?
Well,
I'll give you a quick answer.
I'm just thinking about, what could our charge be after, when these types of technological industries are more ready for build-up.
The legislation that I cited earlier, it gives a 10-year timeline, and it instructs them, like 19 federal agencies, to leverage resources toward achieving this goal. It is an act of Congress that this must be a developed, competitive industry in the United States in 10 years. And as I said, 2 years has passed. I don't know what that means with COVID, but I will tell you this, 4.5 million Americans quit their job in August. 33% of Americans are talking about leaving their jobs still, unless they're going to take the jobs that people had just left. Frankly, what they're going to need to do is figure out what problems they want to solve, apply their skill set to better understanding it. I mean, look, Wilbur and Orville Wright weren't pilots when they invented flight, right? It takes a tinkerer. It takes someone with an interest and a passion towards solving a problem or creating a business. My sense is that, though, Savory, we can develop that type of an industry in a startup phase here now faster than other places, partly because we have the decommissioned power plant, we have that skill set in our area. They don't necessarily even have to be the ones to start it up, but they get the skill set that can help someone with the startups. And maybe, as I said earlier, Carver's not a poor town. When we talk about things like how to attract Trader Joe's to our area, I mean, there's one in Hyannis. You know what the median household income in Hyannis is, where that thing is located? It's the regional draw for that place, and also it's co-located next to one of the best Christmas tree shops I've ever been to. So it's a destination point, is what I'm saying. And when we have industries like quantum, yeah, startups are probably not going to pay very much right away. But can you imagine what that would pay someone if you have the only quantum computing data resource center in the region? And we can help achieve those things by not just attracting the talent and developing the talent. By the way, as a pause, those colleges I mentioned earlier, we have them on a bit of a retainer so that if ever there's a developer that comes into Plymouth or our area and they don't have that skill set yet developed, because let's face it, it's an industry that doesn't have a name. Quincy College, Bridgewater State, UMass, they can all create certificate-bearing training programs with us and for us, working directly with that developer, so that they could feel comfortable coming and knowing that they're going to have a talented skill set or workforce. My sense, Avery, if we talk about ourselves as being open to the idea, we put in place things like the grid scale energy storage. Massachusetts will be successful in bringing on 5,000 new megawatts of wind. That'll help bring that price down. Where do you think that interconnect is going to happen? Well, probably where the power plant and the infrastructure already exists.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
Because we're, as you know, we're at the intersection of the east-west line
Right.
that went from Pilgrim west towards Providence.
Right.
And we're also on the intersection of the north-south line that goes from the Boston area down to the Cape.
Right.
And right now, there is a proposal, it may even be more than a proposal, for a pretty large battery storage facility right where those lines cross. Because they just pull it right down off the poles.
Right.
And you know, that having those high intensity wires in both directions here would offer, you know, the ability to create those battery storage areas, which would then eliminate the 4-day outages.
Eliminate 40 outages and attract
When
high
choosable.
energy intensive users like manufacturers or quantum computing, which is a high energy intensive use. And one of the reasons that's an inhibitor for those types of things in Massachusetts right now is the cost of energy. Plus, in our area, we have a very unreliable grid, as Avery just mentioned. I mean, I remembered when I was here, I don't know if the stat is still the same, but Carver vicinity was the second highest in the state for power outages and duration. So with
We're
that-
trying harder though, trying to get.
I believe, yeah, I know, 96 hours without power, it's just, we just gotta get that down. It's true that, in fact, I'll tell you this too, there's a company that I worked with in pursuit of this, they're called ArcLight out of Boston, and I'll tell you that the most impressive quote that I heard anybody say to me in the last probably couple of years was, this gentleman said, "I don't know what the grid will look like in 20 years, but there will be no grid in 50 years. It's too much of a liability and it's a national security risk." I mean, we're genuinely talking here like economic development is national security now. For
Yeah.
quantum, for energy storage.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'll tell you, the green-blue economy, I mean, people might start those companies in Plymouth, but they're gonna need a place to live. And Carver, Plimpton, and the region is very attractive. Plymouth is our center city. It's our economic engine. And there are, I mean, did you not, there's 2 submarine companies in Plymouth.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, there's submarines that launch out of Cordage Park. I mean, that tells you a little bit about the type of investment that we're already seeing on the ground. We just gotta talk about it so that industry knows that this is the place where they can be met with the least amount of resistance. You create that predictable path forward for them in the permitting process, and then you establish that relationship with their government officials so that they know that if there's an issue that they did not foresee from the state or from the federal regulators, that you can go to your local level official or your state rep and your select board, have them take a vote and authorize some kind of an appropriation or some kind of a support. Those types of things really do matter to startups. And I just think that Carver has demonstrated, better than people give it credit, a willingness to be innovative, a genuine willingness to be entrepreneurial. Most of the people who live in this town, who work in this town, are working in some kind of a corporate level job that's in another town. I'll just rest it there. I mean, your taxes won't go backwards. That's very rare when someone's tax obligation goes backwards. But I'll tell you, Plymouth just dropped their tax rate. Their mill rate went down 20 cents. I mean, over the grand scheme of things, it doesn't mean a lot. But because of the way Prop 2.5 works, we have a levy limit. And then there's also new growth. And that changes your levy limit in perpetuity.
Mhm.
You don't have to raise the amount of money that the levy says, you just can. You open yourself up to new opportunities when you have a problem. And right now, there's no diversity in the Carver economy. And you have a split tax rate. If I pull up my phone right now, I can tell you where the Carver line is at that airport, because that's where development has stopped. So there's a couple of things I think at play here, but I think Carver's well situated to be able to attract that level of investment. And the types of things that Savory and I were kind of just going back and forth about. I mentioned to you earlier how a developer's road will end up being public someday, and that becomes a cost burden to the community. And as I mentioned, no town actually has any one house that's paying enough to educate one kid, never mind pave and plow the streets and all the other necessary maintenance and infrastructure improvements. So what we need to do is attract the type of investment or development that doesn't put a cost burden on the town. Well, we mentioned grid-scale energy storage. You just have an all-weather road that the fire truck can probably get to if there's ever an issue, but you don't put water on lithium-ion batteries anyway. There's mechanisms in place for those things to be shut down remotely, even before they become a problem. And then you can do some mitigation things for environmental stuff, so that if you ever have to put out a fire and there's some kind of suppressant that's used, you can clean that up also. But the fact of the matter is that's pure revenue. That's pure revenue. It's not putting any kind of a cost burden on a road, or it's not putting a kid in the schools. And I'm not being anti-family. I'm just saying we need to balance our economy, because frankly, the cost burden for running an entire government of 11,000 people is placed on 11,000 people.
Mhm.
Right. And it's an aging population. When you go from this, our median age is already 47. By the time you hit the bridge, it's 55. When you get to East End, it's 60. And then by the time you're Truro, people are as old as me and Savory, and then natural attrition happens.
So is you. Well, what you just said, it goes back to the, where we really started, which is the zoning bylaw change, because that gets to the automation.
Yep.
And that means fewer employees, which is, it's not 0 employees like a storage facility could be, but it's fewer, which is less traffic, it's less school children, and more income for the town.
Right.
With longer longevity of a lease and a higher end tenant that's probably going to pay a little bit more to the town for the right to work out of here. So.
I hope you guys have it all figured out. You don't need me.
Well,
So I'll look forward to an email or a call. And I'm
yeah.
available at your disposal if you guys need me for any questions, comments, concerns.
Okay.
And I'm just at the foundation downtown Plymouth, so you want to
I
swing
would-
by?
You moved.
I did. I was at 134, and then just before the pandemic, that building went up for sale, and we're now located at the Caldwell Bank building.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Second floor.
My guess,
Do you have a view?
All right, so I insisted on having at least one window, because my rule is on Fridays, if you can see the water, you can leave at noon. So I have a window that I can barely see the water through, but I can see the water.
my feeling is that in the absence of Joanna, we will probably, we'll discuss it shortly, but call a meeting to just discuss a proposed contract. We do have one other proposal that we have to look at. And then I would say, probably get back to you by the end of the week if we're going to set just a quick, either meeting, just a quick executive session, not a full-blown meeting, to discuss this and vote on it,
Sure.
okay?
So is the proposal actually in the procurement office, or are you collecting, you're collecting solicitations and responses?
We sent out a scope of work
To a list of
to a list of
consultants who do this
list
type
of
of thing that was
consultants.
provided to us by Jim.
Okay.
Jim Walsh.
So you're
that's-
soliciting 3 bids then? That's what you're doing, those 3 bids?
Well, we
Okay.
don't need to have 3 bids.
We're not under those guidelines.
Oh, you exist outside of the...
Yes.
Yep.
stuff, okay.
Right, so we wanted to get more than one.
Okay,
So far, we've gotten 2.
okay. Then I will transmit to you to share with the full board the
If you
draft
could.
proposal. Yeah, I'd be glad
Yeah.
to.
All right.
I didn't realize that's where we were in the process.
Yeah.
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 Cost thresholds and...
This our own consultant, which is chosen by the RDA, is being funded by Hillwood, but they have no control over what we do with the money, and we already have it.
Okay.
So,
In terms of something I think I failed to mention, but it is in our annual, we partner with a couple of digital design companies as well as video production companies,
Mhm.
Hawk Visual and also Pack TV.
back to
They
you.
provide some superlative
Right.
programming and also some production for us. We have them on retainer. We pay them a fee monthly at the foundation. This would be an extension of that. So I would
Okay.
propose if there was ever a video or any kind of a professional production done, whatever the foundation rate is, and then the cost for that subcontractor. I'm not in this to make money,
Okay,
and I would suggest that we would afford our retainer.
so you could
toward this.
facilitate that
Yes, we would
with us?
retain, we
Okay,
would
fine.
afford our retainer toward this
Okay,
effort.
that's
So that
good.
would reduce the costs.
That's great to know, and
It's-
and it's something I think that, when if the time comes, that we talk to Hillwood's PR film
Mhm.
firm,
Right.
because they are doing the same type of drone coverage of the area, so that they can include that in their PR piece.
I mean, over the summer, we had a couple of walkthroughs just for people, like planning board members and fire and safety and RDA members and select board members, Concom, who had never been out to the site. So we did a couple of walkthroughs there. And the intent was sometime in September to have a public walkthrough there's a lot of people who've simply never been out there to physically see what it is, but that didn't happen because we're not there yet. But that's another thing that we were kind of working out.
Yeah.
There's so many townspeople who've never seen it, and once you stand in it, you get the feeling that, it's a site of two dumps
Right.
bordered by another one. So you get the sense that it's just, I usually refer to it as a wasteland.
Yeah, there aren't a lot of 90-foot trees out there.
No.
Yeah, no kidding. You may not get a lot of people in Carver to go to that walkthrough, but one of the things I
have
learned.
to offer it.
No, of course you do. No, I think that the last project I worked on as I left was the COA survey. We did a complete
Oh,
town
yeah.
survey. We identified through the clerk's office every person in town 55 and older.
Mhm.
And I think we did back 5 years or 10 years too, just kind of rope in more of a demographic, because those people will be in 5 years using those services. I mention that because I think that we had a 35 or 42%, I can't remember which number, but it was less than half, but it was much more than we expected, 35.
Yeah.
I feel that line.
He was, it was one of the best, it was better than any election turnout, but it was one of the best response rates for any project that I worked on that did a complete count. And so,
I can't tell you how often I refer back to that survey.
Really, it did
Yes.
yield some good data.
It does. I'm on the COA BOD, and there's a lot of knowledge there that people aren't aware of.
Mhm.
And just even the methodology we used
Yep.
is helping on other committees.
I think we can replicate that
Yeah.
for this project.
Okay.
I mean, people in Carver want to be engaged, but they want to be engaged on their terms. And I
Exactly.
know that from being part of this community,
Yeah.
even before I served as town planner. And I still am. I mean, I was here on Halloween. I wouldn't go anywhere else. Yeah. Anyway,
So my final question
Yes,
is,
sir.
what did you dress as Halloween?
shall I show you? I went as a Wendigo. A friend of mine sets a theme for a couple of us to dress up, and we went with cryptids. So there's that new Guillermo del Toro movie coming out called
Yeah.
Antlers.
Mhm.
It's about a Wendigo. So it's a pretty neat Native American myth. It was not co-opted culture because Saxons and Anglos can be possessed by the Wendigo too. I checked with some Native American friends of mine, but it was an impressive costume.
Did you ever let on to Joanna that it was you?
I stood from the road and I waved. But no, I did not let her know. I just wanted her to know I was watching.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Enjoy
Enjoy.
it. Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Forward to working with
Let me see where I am on, okay. We'll go back to the update on the Route 44 development project, and there's not a lot as far as any kind of movement. I know that the chief is working with his advisor and his consultant, and there's been some back and forth on water.
Yes,
Um,
positive.
Yeah, positive, he said this morning at the working group that there's movement. And I think now it's just a case we're heading into the holidays and people are taking vacations, but other than that,
I would say that based on what the information that the chief shared this morning, that he was a little bit more optimistic.
he did. He sounded like everyone's open to the discussions that they need to have, and I think they're having them.
Yeah, which was good.
And they're supposed to meet again in the next couple of weeks. I think they're pulling together.
Right.
But other than that, we do not have the fiscal impact analysis yet or Hillwood has not received it from Judy Barrett, and I think
Has she done it?
She needed more information.
she and I were going back and forth before we lost all power and everything. We were gonna try and hook up and have a chat. And we're still missing each other. Because she's trying to do it by email and I wasn't really checking. I couldn't get online to check my email. And she said, she made reference to, she's got a draft that she needs to send to Hillwood, but Rick mentioned this morning that she was still looking for, what was it he was looking for?
Something, the,
Capital again?
No, it was how we paid.
Debt.
Oh, the debt service.
The debt service.
Yep, the debt service, which he felt he had sent to her, but
and he also felt was easy.
it was easy enough to figure it out.
Easy enough to figure out from public data.
Excuses from her, you know?
Well,
Yeah, it's been 6 weeks or so.
yeah,
or more.
probably, maybe
Yeah.
more.
But from what I understand, since Hillwood hired her, they will get the report, they will review it, then it'll come up our way for review.
Be nice to have.
It'll be, it will be.
See if she can fit it in.
We also spoke this morning about the necessity, which we mentioned with Mr. Cole, is the necessity of getting a timeline for town meeting. And because we have certain dates that need to be, articles, and there's some concern about when we will get it. It all hinges on what happens with town administrator, I think. Preparing a budget and getting things ready. But we certainly can have a placeholder for the zoning articles. And Savory's idea is that at least if we give them some parameters to Hillwood, then they have to start making more of an effort to close the biggest gap, which is fire and safety, as far as I'm concerned. There wasn't,
Just an update on Montello Street,
oh yeah,
that
that's right.
they have not started the reconstruction of Montello Street yet, the new interchange. It was supposed to start October 15th. They're having a little bit of a supply chain issue with the culvert that's supposed to come in. And also, I think tree clearing was supposed to start sometime soon, is what Rick said, but with the recent storm, those who do that for a living are a little busy
Preoccupied.
doing other things. And
They came to my house today.
emergency. But Rick did say that he expected some work to happen this week, and certainly by next week, that we should
Yeah.
start seeing some kind of construction work happening up there.
So I think next on there would be Paul Kelly.
Well,
Is there any kind of a,
I know that Joanna had said that she wanted to see what Paul had done.
okay.
And I asked you this evening, my email, to bring your computer in case somebody wanted to see it. Joanna obviously is not here, so,
I have not connected up with Joanne yet, besides multiple emails, phone
Mhm.
calls. things along that line.
Well, I would imagine we're probably gonna meet again in 2 weeks, so
Yeah.
hopefully Joanna will be back here. And at that time, I also want to, with Joanna being pseudo
Yeah.
treasurer still, I want to get you, you
Oh,
know,
that's
some payment, because we have to, you know, we did discuss your proposed fee last time, and
Right.
and it was fine.
Right.
So we want to, you know, we don't have the checkbook with us. Joanna controls things, so. So I would say that that's what we'll do, if that's okay with you.
So work and communication and things along that line still have been progressing, it's
Mhm.
just not
Right.
something.
Well, I
not
think
a
that
bullet list.
once we have our meeting to discuss the other proposal that we have from the consultant and
Yeah,
Mr. Coles, when we have the 5 of us together to discuss that, and then we reach some kind of a decision, then that's probably gonna kickstart us quite a bit, because now we'll have all the players in
Right.
place to start moving, because we already know it's us, we know it's you, we know that there's a PR firm that Hillwood has engaged, and we're just waiting for our consultant as the fourth player.
And I think when it goes up, we want to have as much factual information, not information that changes. I don't want something that is, you know, a fact in December to have changed by, you know,
Right.
February, because
yeah,
it's,
we can work on that.
you know,
Yeah.
will, you know, maybe, you know, it'll have to be like constant updating, or, you know, just want to be as above board and as transparent as possible when we get to displaying this. The next thing I have is update from KP Law, review of zoning bylaw proposals. I thought we would actually have it today, but we do not.
Have you been in contact with them?
No.
Okay.
When I made this agenda up 2 weeks ago, I thought they would at least be here, but I noticed Rick made a note when we brought it up today at the working group to get in touch with them, and I don't know whether he did. So
Okay.
maybe I'll just maybe I'll copy him onto an email on, and just ask Katie Klein. I'll go back, because it's been 2 months
Yeah.
that we've been waiting on the proposed bylaw changes for their review, for us to bring them back and look at them ourselves. So that's the only thing. The update on 94th Street. Jack Williams has pulled out. He said we can keep his $5,000, which I'm gonna do. So I think we should.
Okay.
Unless there's a consensus who would like to return it.
No.
I mean, you were pretty quick on that one.
We put ourselves in the 10th.
I was warning him, I gave him warnings over the last 3 weeks or so that his deadline was coming up, and, you know, as far as getting in front of the planning board. And that Joanna had, when we were at the meeting last time, and Joanna had reviewed the PNS, because she's really good at that stuff, that clause 24 said it could not be assigned, so I sent him that email saying, just a heads up. Jim Walsh had mentioned that you may be trying to assign, that you can't do it without our approval, so come before us.
Yeah.
And he kind of immediately bagged out at that point. Because he said what he said in his email to me was that he thought the variance was problematic. And I sent him the opinion we had gotten a while ago from KP Law that the variance was good until June of 2022.
Right.
Because of the COVID delays by the state was staying, all that kind of thing, and that we had renewed it from the point of the PNS signing, and so she felt, so I sent him that, and that still wasn't enough, so he said he is out.
Seems to me he's opting out without putting extra effort in, which is his right.
Well, yeah,
And that's fine, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's.
I think the proposal that they were working on involved some more of those Butler
Sure.
buildings and craftsman tradesmen kind of things, and the planning board is kind of signaling that they're just about done with those, or all concentrated in that one corner, and that's where they were going to be. So I don't know where that leaves us, but I mentioned to Savory, or the rest of you, that I think I just want to let this go till, we'll let the P&S run out. And we need the new planner on board anyway to
Yeah.
remarket it, and maybe we will revisit marketing it with a real estate agent if we can. I'll reread those guidelines. Yes?
I thought there was a bid process that we had to follow.
I thought there was two, but
We have to wait for a new planner,
we have to wait for a new planner.
because there was the public notice, the bids, we had to set a price.
Yep,
We were able to accept a price lower, but we had to vote on that.
right.
And then that seemed to.
Well, there was also that memo from
Certain
KP
thing.
Law from 2017 or so that indicated that we could not use, we could not pay a broker's fee out of the money that we made.
Right.
So there was that memo. So I think we'll probably just end up doing the same thing we did, but we
Okay.
need to wait till we have the planner on board.
All right.
So we're getting into the holidays,
Yeah.
we'll just let it go.
We got plenty to do.
We have other stuff going on. The update on the planner search, like I said, I have, Elaine Weston gave Bruce Mackey and me 5 resumes for applications. It closes on Friday, so if anybody else comes in, we'll get them then, and I will meet with Bruce and we will go over them and pick out the top 2 or 3 to interview, and then does Concom want to be on the interview? Do you work with a planner close, or?
Not really.
Okay,
I mean, Brooke answers to him, reports
Okay.
to him, but
Okay.
Not nearly as much as planning and RDA does.
okay.
Um,
Well, I'll be coming in on the zoning angle as well.
Yeah,
Um,
no, but planning doesn't get too involved in that. It's kind of a little bit out of their wheelhouse,
Okay.
so.
There are a couple of good candidates from I was only able to download 2 of them before my computer just said, we're not playing nice today,
Jeez.
off my hotspot, so Elaine did give me the rest of them and I did look at them, so. I think they're planning on hiring right away. It's a town administrator hire, so I have to check with Rick and get back to him on where we go after we figure out who we're gonna interview. I don't believe we have a treasurer's report.
Oh, did you say anything about Slocum Gibbs? That's on the agenda too.
Yeah, I think okay, my update on the Slocum Gibbs is, it went to record. So, just, I think I was using a template that,
Okay.
hey, I got it uploaded to the meeting calendar. I felt like I learned a new skill. We don't have a treasurer's report, so we'll table that item in the absence of Joanna,
Treasurer,
in the absence of the acting treasurer.
we're getting there.
We're getting there. Is that the treasurer's report? We're still getting there? Did we deposit the Hillwood money?
We created a new account, Joanne, and the money is in the bank.
Okay.
Yes, the 25,000's in the bank,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect. And,
So what's between that and the economic study,
I still don't have access to the accounts yet.
which could happen first?
so who needs to sign checks if we're gonna pay Paul next time?
Any of us can
Any of
sign
us-
checks.
that's right, we can
but
sign.
Usually, it's the treasurer that's the point person to get it going. to receive the invoices, to start the check, and then, you know, bring it to the, like you bring it to one of these meetings, and then say, okay, here it is, everything's all filled out, we just need this one more signature, but here's the backup and so on and so forth, and here's we took this money from this account, from this account, so people get paid and so forth, and that's what I will do at some point.
Okay, well, we're not paying out too much, but
No,
that could get
but-
ramped up pretty soon.
But we do need to provide payment, yes, absolutely. So unfortunately, Joanne, she's still got the checkbook, and I have no access to accounts yet.
Did she
Through
take it, or
electronic.
did we leave it here? Did that go to Jill Martin?
Jill usually has the.
Okay, I think it's in the building department, the actual, but,
Well, I thought she was gonna leave, I talked about leaving it with Elaine too. So I don't know, if it's
Okay.
up- I don't know if it's 2
That's
floors
two-
up or
one
one floor
floor.
up, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
I'll see what I can do.
Okay.
I'll see if I can track it down. I wanted us, one of us to keep it, but Joanna felt it should stay in the town hall. So that's fine too.
When I get it, I don't mind keeping it.
Oh, okay,
I
awesome.
don't think it should, I don't like to let checks,
Yeah, I didn't want to leave it,
I don't let them go. But anyway, I gotta,
because we tend to sign a couple in a row.
I'd have a different perspective
Oh,
on that, I think. But,
you can have,
okay,
when you treasure. And not before.
and not a moment before.
I could not print off the October 19th minutes, and since we don't have any administrative support, Jim wasn't here to prepare our packets for us, so do you want to table the minutes, or did you read them?
I read them.
I read them.
I read it.
I read them.
All right.
Yep.
So I'll move that we pass the minutes of, or that we approve the minutes of October 19th as written.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, and I can upload them as approved. Thank you, Sue. And you have an invoice for us, right? That was on the other thing I couldn't print out.
Yeah,
There's.
Oh, but you sent it to Joanna too, right?
The last meeting I didn't, I think that was gonna start this meeting,
Okay.
because, yeah, there was issues, there's several outstanding invoices too that Jill has the information on. I think she was talking to Joanna.
Okay. Then I'll see if I can talk to Joanna tomorrow and update her. And then I'll see if she can come in and whatever we need to do.
Yeah, we were trying to
for
figure out the
sign
best way
checks.
to handle it.
Okay.
We talked about presenting an invoice at the meeting,
Mhm.
but I didn't know how that would all work, especially where you're in transition with who's.
It's been going on long enough. I mean, part of it's a bank issue,
Yeah,
part of it's a communication issue, part of
Okay.
it is, you know, like Johanna's not here tonight, so,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
Right.
there's a combination of things which is not an excuse and it shouldn't be. It should have happened quite some time ago.
so Jill has the list of outstanding invoices with you?
She should still have it. If
Okay.
not, I can let her know.
Okay.
Because what we did was we ended up sitting down and going through the book,
Oh, okay.
just to see exactly what was paid, because when I get the check, it's just the check. It doesn't state what meeting it's for or anything like that, so,
It will.
yeah.
Gonna be a new sheriff in town. All right, we'll try and see if we can take care of that
Okay.
sooner rather than later. So check with Jill, and I'll have to talk to Joanna tomorrow anyway. Are there any members' comments right now?
Just that I think we should get, do this executive session meeting, or whatever we have to do
Right.
to talk about Stan Tech or whatever
Yep.
it is, and also
So I was
possible
thinking,
vote.
of calling just a quick executive session to discuss the two proposals and come to a vote, and then either notify the party.
Okay.
Is there a day?
Does that fall under the accepted reasons for executive session?
I'm not Jan,
Well,
what's
if you discuss it in executive session, you have to come out and vote for it in public session.
Okay, well, I don't mind voting for
If
it in
you
public
do,
session.
but whether it even entails an executive session, I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's probably true. I guess I was thinking
There's a
because of
need for
money.
one.
Yeah, I was thinking in terms of money. So is there a day next week where we could do just one quick, that's the only thing on the agenda?
Next week,
Yeah.
for me, any day.
How feasible is Wednesday, any chance?
Do you have Concom on Wednesday?
Not next week. I may be in Maine. I have Tuesday available.
Tuesday. I mean, I'm
That's the
wide.
9th, right? Yes.
Tuesday's the 9th.
I can do Tuesday, I'm working from home next Wednesday, so the risk of me being late is lower, but Tuesday's fine.
Because they'll be closed here on Veterans Day, right?
Oh,
That's that's Thursday.
Thursday.
yeah.
So they'll be closed here. And I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah.
So do you want to try for Tuesday or do you
Yeah.
think you'll be in Maine?
No, I would not be going to Maine until Wednesday if I go.
Okay.
So Tuesday, I can do Tuesday.
So let's put Tuesday, is 6 o'clock okay again? or-
Yeah, 6 is fine, it's just, traffic is the,
I know. You want to try 6:30?
Since it's going to be short.
It's just going to be a short meeting. Would
I'm fine with
6:30 work with
6:30.
you?
that's safer.
Okay.
I just don't want, I don't want to hold everybody up.
No, we're only going to discuss the two proposals and vote
That works.
to accept one or the other.
Cool.
So let's make it for Tuesday at 6:30. I'll double check with Joanna. And we'll set that. Do you want to set another meeting?
Yes, we should do it 2 weeks from tonight, the 16th.
16th? Yep.
Hopefully by then we'll have made a decision and we can start moving.
Yep.
Because the following week is
We get
Thanksgiving
into
week.
Thanksgiving and we get
So
into.
what are we doing, the 16th? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, Tuesday the 16th. We'll set that as our next meeting
At 6.
at 6.
Okay.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So, I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.